What?
Now they should be able to hear us.
What did you...
I just pressed 2 buttons. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
So I just did the whole intro, and they couldn't hear me.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
Honestly, not the worst case scenario, considering the beginning of it was just kind of...
Hey, it was fine. It was fine.
We're good. Anyway, sorry for all the technical difficulties. Some delays at home, just some issues all around that needed to be resolved, and they were, and now we're here, and everything's fantastic.
Aiden's wife is leaving him.
You know, she's taking the kids. I wasn't prepared. We're going to leave it alone. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, I can hear us. You've got us... Okay.
I knew I had it in the right thing initially.
You fool.
You fool.
Wrong hole. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lore Lodge Official Podcast. This is episode 2. As you can see, we're still figuring some stuff out. But we've got a few good topics for you. We got Dyatlov Pass, some of the other stuff that I covered in last week's Lore Lodge lore episode. And I don't think Aidan actually knows anything about what I'm going to be talking about, so this may be him asking a lot of questions as a surrogate for you guys, as has been the case. So, with that, I'll dive right into this. We're going to start off talking about Dyatlov Pass. Aidan, what do you know about Dyatlov Pass?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
All right.
I know quite literally nothing about it at all. Also, hang on. Let me know if that fixes the echo for anybody.
There was an echo?
Apparently there was a slight echo on mine. Thank you, Self-Righteous Scott, for letting me know about that. But, yeah. Anyway, so Dyatlov, Dante's Inferno.
Dyatlov Pass.
Okay. Yeah, I know nothing about it. Could you tell me about it, please?
So, Dyatlov Pass is a pass in the Ural Mountains in what is now Russia. Back in 1959, when the incident occurred, it was the USSR.
Okay.
And the story here is that a group of 9 hikers were found dead within a few hundred yards of their campsite. This was from a rather experienced group of hikers who should have known what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And the story in the past couple years has been that they discovered that, an avalanche is what happened. And that explains how these people were found not crushed to death by snow in their tent, but several hundred yards away from it, wearing each other's mismatched clothes, having tried to start campfires in the middle of the night, with the tent cut open from the inside and radioactive bodies being found. So the interesting part of that avalanche theory is where it came from, which is when Frozen 2 came out a couple years ago, somebody noticed that the program they used to animate the snow was very realistic, and somebody thought, you know what, let's use this program to recreate the conditions at Dyatlov Pass on February 1st, 1959. Why this came to mind, I do not know. But what they decided was, given the conditions and the snow physics from Frozen 2, you could explain what happened with an avalanche. And essentially it was the way they cut into the snow to set up their tent created wind conditions that would allow for this freak accident to happen. And that, again, somehow explains why people were found several hundred yards away wearing each other's clothing with poorly constructed fires. The Russian government, the USSR, totally covered this up. They blocked off the site. They moved the bodies. Everything that they did was essentially to keep anybody from really investigating what happened here. Why Disney is covering for the USSR, I don't know. There are so many conspiracy theories I could dive into there, but what's important is the discrepancy between the official explanation of avalanche and some of the key factors, which are the tent being cut open from the inside. That does not scream avalanche. The bodies being found in various states of undress, between a few yards and several hundred yards from the tent itself. And part of this is explained by paradoxical undressing, which is the phenomenon of people entering the final stages of hypothermia, getting a rush of a heat sensation through their body, and undressing to relieve that. Why that happens, we don't necessarily know. It may be the body trying to prepare the mind for death. But that could explain why they were in various states of undress. What it doesn't explain is why they were wearing each other's clothing. Because what that implies is that they got dressed very hurriedly. They didn't have time to check and see whose clothing was whose. They were trying to escape the tent, which again doesn't really fit with an avalanche. An avalanche is kind of a sudden occurrence. If snow were cascading down upon them, they wouldn't have time to get dressed and cut open the tent. So you go a little bit farther out. What do you have? They're wearing each other's clothing. So that implies that they were scavenging for clothes off of each other's bodies. On top of that, you got at least 2, I forget exactly how many, but at least 2 campfires that were attempted. And then there's the state of the bodies when they were found. Now, a lot of people have said that it was scavengers that did what they did. But what they found was one of the women was up kind of in a little cave, and she was missing her eyes. Another was missing her tongue. Some had limbs torn off, and none of them appeared to have died from blunt force trauma. So, again, it was not a physical impact that killed them. It was either the cold or the missing body parts. Scavengers will go for the eyes, but they generally won't pry open a frostbitten corpse to get at the tongue. So, if his tongue is missing, and you're up in the mountains, and you're what happened there, right? And on top of that, the site and some of the bodies were radioactive, which makes things even weirder, because what happened there?
So when you say radioactive, how radioactive are we talking?
Enough to set off a Geiger counter. Like, as if you had walked through the reactor room in a nuclear power plant without any protective gear.
Okay.
Yeah. So, to me, that doesn't scream... Nothing about this screams avalanche. And I keep coming back to, why would Disney be covering for the Soviet government? Where is the... Why? What is going on? So you can dive into as many conspiracy theories as you want there, but there still remains the question, what happened to these people's bodies? And there's a few possibilities. As I mentioned in one of my TikTok videos yesterday, it's possible that the Russians were doing testing on the effects of nuclear radiation on people's bodies. This actually would explain the paradoxical undressing, because if they dosed them with some sort of radioactive isotope, if they gave them pills or food that had uranium or plutonium in it, it could result in radiation sickness, in burns to the body that would cause them to feel as though they were very quickly heating up. Also, if there was some sort of direct gamma radiation weapon that they tested on them, there's a possibility that they were testing a sort of bomb nearby, and that this had something to do with their state. Or there's the slightly more fun theory that it was actually a human experimentation situation gone wrong, where they were trying to create some sort of super soldier using radiation, and this resulted in something being created and let loose, which would explain why they cut the tent open and ran away. Doesn't exactly explain why they decided it was a good idea to make campfires. But the most confusing thing about Dyatlov Pass isn't it's not any one of the aspects of it. It's the sum total of them. Because any one of these things on its own kind of makes sense. Mm. You put them all together and they all contradict themselves. So, what happened? I mean, after me just describing it to you just now, I'm curious what you think. My phone is buzzing.
Is it? Did you not put it on?
I did not put it on Do Not Disturb.
It's someone named Jack Holden, it looks like.
Why is Jack Holden calling me?
Everybody in chat say hi to Jack Holden. Big fan of the show, it seems.
He got me into Freemasonry. That's
so,
another can of worms.
Yeah, right. So, my initial instincts based off of initially hearing that story are... Well, one question that I have is, how do they know for certain that... And, it's just technicality, essentially. But how do they know for certain that the tent was cut open from the inside?
I'm not sure how exactly they determined that. That's from the initial report put together by the Russian government, by the search and rescue team that found them. So my assumption there has got to be that it had something to do with the way that the knife marks were made, whatever tool they used. It was not unzipped when they found it, so that would imply that they cut it open from the inside. I mean, when you exit a tent and you would make bends to the fabric and everything. I actually don't know how they came to that exact conclusion. All I know is that's the conclusion they came to.
That's fair. Yeah, the whole Disney thing is kind of an interesting little addition to the story, just because it's like, they wouldn't. Well, I mean, we can't know for certain how they might have benefited from telling the story a certain way or confirming a certain story, but I don't know. The radioactivity is probably the weirdest element to that entire story. Like, the whole thing. So in my mind, it's like, okay, avalanche happens. Like, there's a massive rumble. If you're in a tent, you're woken up by it before it hits you. I can imagine. Okay, yeah, you're scrambling to get clothes on, get out of the thing. I can buy that. But then you throw on the fact that they were all radioactive. Then you have to question every element of the story.
Why is there a radioactive avalanche, right?
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Very confusing. And your theory was interesting about somebody essentially dosing them with plutonium or something along those lines, which makes sense. Still weird, makes sense.
I mean, the US and UK both studied the effects of plutonium radiation on the human body, but they did it with accidental cases.
How so?
Whenever somebody would accidentally be hit with radiation when working on a nuclear reactor, they would autopsy the body. And there was actually a situation that the Los Alamos body snatchers, if you look that up on YouTube, you're going to find some interesting stuff. But
anything with the total body snatchers, I feel like you're going to get some interesting stuff.
What happened was every time people would get dosed with lethal doses of radiation, once they were dead, the team at Los Alamos, which was one of the core nuclear study laboratories.
That was back all the way in...
It's the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
Every time somebody would die of radiation poisoning, they would have the body basically stolen and sent to Los Alamos for studying. It was one doctor. I can't remember what his name was, but it was one particular doctor who was doing most of the experiments. And for 2 decades, they were just stealing bodies and testing the remains to see how radiation affected human cells. They eventually actually settled with a lot of the families, but it was still one of the, it was one of those things where it's like, well, that's more ethical than what the Russians were probably doing, but it's not the most ethical thing you could have done.
Correct. You could have at least gotten, permission first?
Yeah. More ethical than whatever Russia's doing is really not a good barometer.
No, that's like saying you're more healthy than if you got dosed with plutonium.
Yeah, more healthy than the health minister of Belgium.
Now we're just really firing ringers, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Look up the health minister of Belgium if you want to laugh. That's some irony right there.
Good little chuckle.
Yeah, good little jiggle.
The jingle.
Somebody's not following their own guidelines. Do you know the food pyramid was actually completely wrong for 3 decades? Like the FDA's food pyramid.
I remember the posters from middle school, but how was it wrong? Wasn't it carbs, proteins, basically fats, or fats and proteins or something?
Just the proportions of everything were totally off, and it was you should be eating 8 to 11 servings of bread per day, and just completely wrong amounts of fruits and vegetables.
I didn't realize I was a peasant in 1300s England.
Oh yeah, it's horrible if you go back and look at it compared to the current one. It's
because the current thing is you should have a balance of carbs, proteins, and fats. It should essentially
back then it was you should base your entire diet on carbs.
No.
And then protein was up at the top. This is the most important, but you should eat the least of it. And now it's a quarter protein and
for anybody who's interested in nutrition and or weightlifting or just general health and fitness, imagine somebody telling you that you should eat only a small amount of protein
Aidan, you're not speaking into the microphone.
and a vast amount of carbs, you would look at them dead in the eyes and say, so you want me to lose all my gains immediately.
It's the Italian diet.
It's the you diet.
Yeah, it's the me diet.
Pasta.
I've got some pasta in my fridge that is basically the food pyramid. In one.
Well, then you got your, the sauce is, vegetable.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
tomato a fruit?
Tomato is a fruit.
So that's the one I always get. But what about like cucumber?
Cucumbers are also a fruit. If it has seeds, it's a fruit.
Do zucchini have fruit? I mean,
Zucchini
seeds?
have seeds.
So zucchini is a fruit as well.
Zucchini is a fruit. Lettuce is a vegetable.
What about peppers? Like
Peppers
bell
are
peppers?
also fruit.
I think you're breaking some people's minds right now.
That is what we learned in all of my high school nutrition courses. If it has seeds, it's a fruit. If it does not have seeds, it's a vegetable, which is cucumbers. I'm about to really destroy some people's lives right now. Pickles are a fruit.
Well, they're just pickled cucumbers.
I know, but just think about how a fruit should taste. And think about a pickle.
Yeah.
Wrong. How did we get here?
I don't know, but I'm a fan.
Boy. All right.
I have no idea, but I like it.
But yeah, so that's a nuclear. How do we have a nuclear avalanche that resulted in people's tongues being scavenged?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of whack.
Yeah, it's. And the thing is, if you go and look, a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't buy the avalanche explanation, but nobody really has another one. There's no agreed upon explanation for what happened at Dyatlov Pass. It's just everyone agrees that it was weird.
Valid.
Which I would love, if anybody in the chat has their own theories, I would love to hear them, unless the theory is it was an avalanche, because then you're siding with Disney, and as we know, Disney is evil.
We're on episode 2, and you're already dropping the Disney is evil comments. I mean, it's a bold move. That's all I can say.
Who's going to take us down, Aiden? Is it going to be the government or Disney?
That's a valid point.
I think I'm more scared of Disney. Can you imagine Mickey Mouse just breaking into the apartment with a shotgun?
I think I'm also more scared of Disney.
Yeah. I feel like Disney would... I would disappear. Disney would, disappear me, and then I would be living in a dungeon underneath the castle at Disney World.
Valid.
Whereas if the government did something, it would be like a federal penitentiary, which wouldn't be great, but at least it wouldn't be getting, my butt tickled by Mickey Mouse.
That is a very interesting
Yeah.
visual.
Yeah. I'd be down there with Walt Disney's cryogenically frozen corpse.
Do you think they actually did that?
I would not be surprised.
I'd be very entertained.
He was a strange man. I would not be shocked if we get a cryogenically frozen Jeff Bezos.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Him, Mark Zuckerberg. Who else? Jack Dorsey from Twitter.
Yeah, but he's still alive right now.
Oh, yeah. But, once they're close,
That's fair.
These are, real conspiracies we're getting into. These aren't even the kind we usually talk about.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
This is just Walt Disney is frozen in the dungeon of the castle at Disney World.
Well, they're all...
What did you just unplug?
My mic. I'm not sure if it's picking it up properly.
That's good. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. It's fine.
Is anyone in the chat saying they can't hear you?
Yeah, it's essentially that I'm echoing, and that's why I put these in, because
is
it's
it possible that your computer is picking up both the mic from your microphone?
No, see, here's the problem, is that now that I'm listening through both of this, it sounds like I'm being picked up by your mic, not mine. So there's that minor thing.
Good. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah,
This is totally going to be listenable.
It should be. We did just get a subscriber, though, so that's
nice.
fun.
And super chats aren't working, I see.
I'm not aware if they are or not.
You would be able to see it in the chat. Well, actually, no, because you're logged in as... Open up an incognito window. Let's just ask the chat. Chat, are super chats available? Obviously, I got to wait a little bit of time to get the answer on that, but when it pops up, let me know, because I have absolutely no idea how to configure anything Google does.
Elaborate.
it's just confusing. They don't make anything user-friendly. And I've been working with Google products for years now in the digital marketing sphere, and it's just everything they do makes no sense to me. But anyway, let's hop back into the next subject. Aidan, you got to listen to me rant about this for an hour last week. The Otherworlds and the Yggdrasil, as well as I didn't get to talk about this in the video because it was getting to be 20 minutes long, but also some of the concepts of the afterlife in Celtic mythology and the Norse, Christianity and Judaism. Words are very difficult.
They are.
Some of these different concepts. I guess I'll just jump into it. So the first thing I talked about in last week's lore video, and I feel free to go watch that. Obviously not right now, but at a later date. The Celtic pantheon of gods and religion, we're talking about a very broad people group here, a broad ethno-linguistic group, but they had a concept of what they called the otherworld, which in modern retellings is kind of this seen as this underground world that the Tuatha De Danann traveled to. But when you go back and you investigate kind of the older medieval texts on the subject and you examine the borrowed words from Irish to Welsh and back again, what you get is a picture of something that wasn't so much an underworld as pocket dimensions that you could jump into and out of by going through the seed, which were the fairy mounds. And that's where we also get the term banshee. It's woman of the she, which, woman of the fairy mound, and banshees, of course, herald the death of family members. If you were a very important family, then you would usually have a familial banshee. And the banshee, of course, is a very interesting figure because it starts to appear in some other mythologies, like in the Americas, where you have La Llorona. La Llorona? I think. La Llorona, yeah. That's what a double L does in Spanish. La Llorona, which is a wailing woman who, in some traditions, will lead you to water so she can drown you. And in other traditions, heralds the death of someone close to you. And then there are even more Native American First Nations legends that have similar lore to them. And then the idea of women who are directly related to death also pops up in Norse mythology with the Valkyrie, which are these divine women who come down and they're choosers of the slain, so they decide who gets to go to Valhalla. They pick out the people who become members of the Einherjar, which are the Norse warriors who will fight at Ragnarok. What are you doing?
Interacting with chat to make sure that I sound normal and also making fun comments.
Oh, okay.
To be engaging.
Right.
While listening to you speak about Mayorona.
Why? We should definitely get a mixing board.
Yeah, once we can afford it, we will.
Nice. I would like to be able to afford a mixing board. Sub to us on Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. We really want to do better content. It's just we're too poor to do better content.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I have loans. I have so much in loans.
Don't you love it? Anyway, yeah, so you're saying La Llorona.
Yeah. So anyway, women are associated with death in a lot of cultures.
Why is that?
I'm not entirely sure. But in a lot of cases, it seems to be because they're caretakers.
That would imply the opposite of death.
There's something comforting about, a woman being the person taking you to the afterlife, I guess, is kind of what I'm trying to say. Because in our lives, the first person that we really know as a caretaker is generally our mother. When you're sick, you're usually taken care of by a nurse. Nurses are usually women. It's just, I think that's got something to do with it. But just to get back to kind of the concept of other worlds in Celtic mythology, There is a difference between the Irish and the Welsh one. The Irish are kind of the idea that you can...
So Archie just had to make his appearance. We forgot to put him in the other room because, we wanted to be inclusive about it. I still hear echo.
Give me 1 second.
You're good. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, chat, while he takes care of that, yes, say hello to Archie, the little champion. Yeah, I don't buy the fact that I no longer have echo, but if y'all tell me it sounds fine, then I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I feel like that makes a good amount of sense, just given the fact that, a lot of societies kind of put women on the pedestal as caretakers in the sense of like that was the most important role that you could have as a woman, because it was like you are raising new life. You're looking at
How could I?
Yeah. We have the playback here, and Archie just showed up because there's the delay. Anyway, man, this is really a much bigger train wreck than the first one. I'm kind of amazed.
I think this is fun. I think we're having a good time.
It's a great time. When we actually do finally put this on Spotify, once we have enough money to spend the time to figure that out, then editing this episode will be fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so Otherworlds in Irish mythology, there are a few different ways that you can get to the Otherworld. One of them is to sail west across the sea, which Tolkien used in The Lord of the Rings to discuss how the elves get to Valinor when they decide to leave Middle-earth, which is a lot that I could go into, but that this is not the time.
I hope at least some of y'all are Lord of the Rings fans, because this one over here.
Whole bunch of Lord of the Rings books right there. I don't think they can see it on the camera.
They can see it.
Can they?
No, they can't. No, they can't. That one you can. This one you can't.
Yeah.
We'll get there. It's fine.
But yeah, so you can sail west across the sea. This is what Bran does in the Voyage of Bran. He goes to the Isle of Joy, the Isle of Youth, and the Isle of Plenty. Problem with that is that since the way Celtic time works is that when you go into the Otherworld, you're actually stepping out of time, and time in Celtic mythology is a spiral. So you can step out of time in one place and back into time in another place by moving laterally.
Yep.
Which is not how linear time would work. But in the Voyage of Bran, they all get back from their journey, and they hop off the boat, and everybody who hops off the boat turns to ash immediately, because they have returned several decades later, and they're all, the second they step on land, they become as old as they should be in that world.
What exactly do you mean they become as old as they should be?
So they're gone for like 80 years. I forget the exact amount of time. But they're gone for a long time. And then when they sail back into the future. And so when they get off the ship, they all become as old as they actually should be at that time. So if they left in 500 AD, they come back in 600 AD, then they're all over 100 years old when they step foot on land. Mm-hmm. But when they're on the ship that they traveled in, they're the age they were when they left.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the issues with going into the time spiral. But one of the ways that you would get into the Otherworld, the other way to get into the Otherworld other than sailing west across the sea, was to go into a fairy mound. And if you went into a fairy mound, you would go into this kind of pocket dimension where you would be underground, but you would be in the Otherworld, and you would be in a two-a-days specific seed. Oh my gosh. I think it was itches.
You need one of those little Velcro things that astronauts put on their... Just right here on the mic thing. Just blow up everybody's ears while you shake it on that thing. Man, we're really struggling here, aren't we?
Anyway, so yeah, Irish Otherworld, pocket dimensions. Welsh Otherworld is more like a parallel plane of existence. And whereas in Ireland, each Tua, which was kind of the regional petty kingdoms, had its own seed.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to have to get into the actual definition of kingdom you're speaking.
You know what? Let's do that. Let's do that now.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
A lot of flack for that on TikTok. I said Irish royal families, and Irish TikTok got very upset with me because apparently they don't like the term royal family, which I understand. I get that. If I were Irish, I also would not like the royal family. But it's a case where you've got to separate the term itself, royal family, from the specific cultural meaning of that word, which we generally take to mean the English royal family. And you got to look at it in terms of what the words actually mean, semantically, which is royal, to have the status of a king or queen, and family, which is family. So a family that holds the status of king and queen would be
royal family.
Exactly. And royal, the word is French. It's not English. Family is just Indo-European. It's evolved into a bunch of different languages, but German is family, French is, I think, also family, Spanish is familia, Italian is familia. So the word royal family just means a family that has the status of king and queen. Irish TikTok did not like that statement.
They were not fans
and
at all.
And they would say, oh, well, we elected our leaders, or, oh, we had chieftains, not kings, to which I said, the Irish word is the ri, or tua. The Welsh version of tua is toisich. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but in Welsh it means prince. The Welsh used the term prince because they didn't want to use the term king, because they associated kings with tyranny. And they also had a thing for Rome.
Sounds like historical Welsh or historical Wales and modern Irish TikTok have something in common.
Yeah. So the tua, the ri, the toisach, all of these different words really mean just sovereign, mean the head of state for anything from a small chiefdom up through the entire kingdom. And you would have an ardri, which is actually both Welsh and Irish. It's one of the few terms that's exactly the same in the two languages, although it does have different accents. But an ardri would mean a high king, and a high king would generally not be the sole absolute monarch, but rather the leader of a confederacy of clans and tribes. But throughout Irish history, throughout Welsh history, both countries often had ardris. In Wales, it was more of a position that was taken during times of war, because it would be used to unite the tribes and the clans and the fiefdoms against the Vikings, against the Irish, against the English, whoever they had to fight. In Irish, it was more of, I'm not going to say it was a status symbol that people tried to take, but if you could go and hold the Hill of Tara and go through the associated ceremony, then you would become the High King of Ireland, and somebody would have to take that from you, or you would just be High King of Ireland. It didn't necessarily mean that you had all that much power, but you would be High King, and that would make your family
a royal family.
A royal family. So I just don't understand why Irish TikTok was so upset with me, other than their aversion to the term.
I think it was just the aversion to the term.
But it's just so strange, man. I get it. I understand. But don't hate me for using the English language. Hate the English for making that the lingua franca, which I think is really funny, because lingua franca means French language, but it's the term we use to describe English.
Why?
Because French used to be the language of the elite, the language that was spoken by most people in Europe. Not most people, but all of the nobility. It was the language of diplomacy. So the term lingua franca...
Across what nations, out of curiosity?
Basically all of the Christian nations of Europe.
What time frame?
Middle Ages. So from around the 800s to about when the Renaissance started, it was the language of diplomacy in Europe. Primarily in England and France, but also to an extent Italy, the Germanys, Spain, all those countries. because the French were the most powerful nation in the world. And then when England kind of took over the mantle of being the most powerful nation in the world,
Which was around about what time?
that was kind of the colonial era, kind of the 1600s on. Is if you look at that's kind of when the passing of the torch was.
And what exactly was were the events of that passing of the torch?
It was really colonialism.
Okay.
The English just did a better job at colonizing the New World and at creating a trade network than the French did. And the English Navy the French army was stronger than the English army, but the English Navy was stronger than the French Navy. And when you're talking about a global economic situation where everything is conducted via ship, having the stronger Navy makes you the more powerful country. Little tidbit about that, actually. When the United States won its independence in 1783, we had the second largest merchant fleet in the world and no navy.
Well,
because we used to have the British Navy defending our merchant ships.
yes.
So the United States had to build a navy very quick. We had John Paul Jones.
I was just going to say, you can't...
We had John Paul Jones.
John Paul Jones did, in fact, exist, and he was whole. I can go on a rant about him at some point, but...
We'll have to do an entire episode about John Paul Jones.
We really should, because he's just a legend. Absolute...
Dude. Aidan has a sweatshirt that I made him.
Yes.
You can actually get that at unqualifiedapparel.com. If you go there, there's some cool shirts that we started making before we were doing this.
Yep. Just for fun.
Just for fun. Yeah, but there's a lot of cool stuff on there. Some of it's political, some of it's historical, some of it's just BS.
Yep. And some of it's all three of it.
The Absolve Your Sins with Pray Pal being a classic example.
Yes.
But yeah, so English and okay, so Wales.
Yes.
And I was talking about R3 as a term. In Irish, it was the High King. In Welsh, it was also the High King. But I have a theory, which I have argued with a few different medievalists about. But medievalist, by the way, is not a term that means somebody who, it's not like pagan, where you worship pagan gods. Or you don't worship the medieval era or seek to live as if you're in the medieval era. It means somebody who studies the Middle Ages, whether that be as a historian, an anthropologist, an archaeologist, a linguist, whatever. That is the medievalist field, just so that nobody's confused. But the story of King Arthur, Arthur's father Uther gets the term Pendragon. In a lot of the later versions of the story, Arthur also gets the term Pendragon, although it's not clear if he had that in all of the original stories. Pendragon, so dragon being the national symbol of Wales, and pen being another word for the highest.
What language is that?
Welsh.
Okay.
Well, it's the English
version of the Welsh.
Version
Got
of
it.
Welsh.
Yeah.
So Pendragon likely stems from Pendrech, which would mean high dragon. Ardri, which means High King, could be where we got the term Arthur. Now, there are people who say it was somebody named Artorius or Artur. The name Arthur comes from Roman Iberia, so Roman Spain. But I think it's just too much of a coincidence to not at least explore the possibility that we're talking about a guy whose title was Ardri Pendrech, High King, High Dragon. Or High King, Highest Dragon.
That sounds like a fantastic kung fu movie.
It does sound like a fantastic kung fu movie. But yeah, so that's my little theory on that. My professor Benjamin Hudson, he was my favorite professor in college.
Shout out Ben Hudson.
Thanks, Ben. He did not like that theory.
Why?
We did not discuss it. I was a sophomore. He was an Oxford PhD in his 40th year of teaching. I simply did not find it prudent to argue.
Wait a second. You taking a moment to decide not to argue with somebody?
I went, you know what? I'm out of my depth.
So there is a limit. We have found it. It just so happens that if you have a PhD from Oxford and you've been teaching for 40 years...
The limit does not exist.
Then... Oh?
The limit does not exist.
I don't know about that one.
Have you ever seen Mean Girls?
It's been a while.
Oh my god. Disappointed in you.
Stop living in 2002.
I know, I really shouldn't. But yeah, so that's my theory on where the name Arthur Pendragon came from. It could also just be somebody whose name was quite literally Arthur. There's a lot of theories about where King Arthur came from, but that's going to have to be a different podcast.
Yes, I think we should also do a separate podcast on dragons, or maybe a Friday video, because that would be interesting.
Yeah, dragons are a cool one. Probably just dinosaur bones, but still cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Welsh Otherworld, or Anuvan. I hope Welsh TikTok doesn't find this.
I've heard you say it.
Anavan. I've said it. Yeah. Anavan, Anuvan. I don't speak Welsh.
Please don't say Anavan again, because that sounds like a really rough, like...
Anavan.
That
sounds like I'm trying to say Adavan.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like an antidepressant.
Yeah, man, I'm on Anavan. It's spelled ANNWFN, so please excuse my inability to pronounce a word where W is a vowel.
For someone moving to Wales, you better get ready to pronounce some W's.
The Welsh word for beer is cwrw, and it's spelled CWRW.
Say it one more time.
Cwrw.
Cwrw.
CWRW. It is a word that in English does not have a vowel.
It's just, so they're really taking the
W, and they're pronouncing it the way it's...
Yeah, they're really going full on, like... Yeah. Well, because in English, not in English, in English, we write W's as V's.
Yeah, that's because in the Latin alphabet, the U was written like a V, because they're often carving it into stone. And you can't really carve it. It's hard to carve a U into stone. Yeah. Which is why in both Elder and Noor Futhark, which is the runic language that the Norwegians and Swedes and Danes all used in the Middle Ages, that's why everything is angular. Is because you had to carve it into stone.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just fun to think about.
Yeah, also, it's a fun word, Elder Futhark. Like
Elder Futhark.
Yeah. I love Norse words, because they're almost English words most of the time. Like, Book of... The Book of Iceland, Icelandic book. Like...
It's just like, it's almost hilarious.
Some of them are nowhere near it, like Heimskringla, which is World Encircler.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
that almost sounds German.
It's Snorri Sturluson's basically history of the world.
What is your favorite, not to get way off track, but what is your favorite...
We're already
it's fine. That's part of the reason why I didn't stop myself. What is your favorite non-English word, and what does it translate to in English?
Llanfairpwllgwyngyll. I can't remember the rest of it. It's that one town in Wales, and it means like the Church of Saint Mary by the grove of the Abbey of Saint Cecilio near the whirlpool in the Red Cave.
Oh my god!
Look it up. See.
Okay, let's
pull that shit up, Jamie.
Yeah. Jamie, pull that up. Let me check to see what display capture is.
I don't know if we're going to be able to do this, but it is a utterly ridiculous
Welsh town.
It's already an autofill because so many people search for it. You're not going to be able to pronounce it. I'm just telling you that right now. It's like Llanfairpwllgwyngyll.
Oh, okay. This is a lot.
Can you screen share it?
Yeah, we're working on it. Hang on.
Put the glasses on. That's the short version. Yeah, that's just Llanfairpwllgwyngyll. It's the one all the way on the right.
Let's see.
We're working on this here.
Yeah,
this is why we have the lore. This is why we have the lore episodes, is so we can actually talk about this stuff in a concise way.
Yeah, because otherwise, this is,
But yeah, were you able to pull it up?
No, it's not working.
Okay, well, here, can you turn that around a little bit so I can see it and I can try to pronounce this? Llanfairpwllgwyngyll gogri chwindrobl Llantysilio gogogoch.
So,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I actually was close on that.
Which one? Did you read this one or this one?
This one. Yeah,
because that wasn't even like the end of it. Oh, this is it.
Oh yeah, it's so yeah. Llanfairpwllgwyngyll gogr chwindrobl. There's 4 L's in a row.
Hang on, I'm gonna drop this in the chat.
Yeah.
So y'all understand what
why
is
I'm
happening.
why I'm trying so hard right now.
Because I can't screen share right now for some reason. Because if technical difficulties wasn't the subtitle of this, episode, now it officially is.
Yeah. Pull it back up though, so I can read what the actual name means. Yeah. The Church of Saint Mary in the hollow of the white hazel trees near the rapid whirlpool by Saint Cecilio of the Red Cave.
I mean,
so I can only assume that there's also turn it back around, that there's also the Church of St. Mary in the hollow of the white hazel trees near the rapid whirlpool by St. Cecilio that isn't by the Red Cave.
Probably, yeah.
There must have just been a chain of names here that eventually came to us having this overly complicated, long town name.
I want to know what's so special about the Red Cave.
I don't know. I just assumed there was also one that wasn't by a red cave.
Fair.
So they had to be like, oh yeah, the one by the red cave.
Oh yes, the one by the red cave. No, is it that? Yes.
It's like how we've got Marion and Lower Marion. Like Marion obviously came first, and now we've got Lower Marion.
Kind of like how.
And there's Derby and Upper Derby. I don't think there's a Lower Derby.
So.
You're getting into some real Delco BS here.
Yes, very much. My instinct whenever it says like what came first, I go to like fork versus pitchfork. I don't know why that's my go-to, but
that's a really oddly specific example you just gave.
For some reason, I've used it more than once.
Oh my God.
I don't know why. It just has happened.
What time is it?
It is 8:50.
Okay, we got to get to the next section of this, so I'm just going to really quickly go through what I was going to say about Otherworlds. So the Welsh Otherworld, while the Irish Otherworld is set up as a series of pocket dimensions, the Welsh Otherworld is more of a parallel dimension where you have a similar structure of the nobility, of the aristocracy, to actual Welsh government. So you would have a high king and then often a pretender high king and then a series of chieftains and petty kings. And what we believe from those two descriptions that we get from the Middle Ages, which are retellings, they're Christianized retellings of the original Celtic mythology, so we definitely lost something along the way there. But we know that there was a certain degree to which they associated their cultural otherworld with their actual world they inhabited. So that's how they understood it, which makes you wonder, were the other worlds actually different, or was this a cultural difference? And where did it evolve? Because if it got to that point, then it probably predates the Irish getting to Ireland. And then we don't know exactly what the Gauls believed, but they probably had their own version of it. So one of the great
remind us who the Gauls were.
The Gauls were the continental Celts who inhabited what is now France.
Okay.
And Gauls is a broad term. There were individual tribes like the Briganti, the Arverni, the Aedui, the Belgii.
And what time period is this?
This is Rome.
Okay.
These were wiped out by Julius Caesar.
Okay.
By the time, part of the reason that French as a language persists to this day is that Latin and Spanish. Latin reached Spain before Caesar. So I forget exactly when the Romans conquered Spain, but it was prior to Caesar's time. Caesar conquered Gaul and set up the first expedition to Britain. But, part of the reason that we have Welsh and Irish and not continental Gaelic, or Gallic, I guess, is because Caesar didn't make it to Ireland. And the Brythonic Celts, the Britons, now what we refer to as the Welsh, the Romans had a really hard time establishing control in Britain over the countryside. Like the Romans wouldn't have walled towns on the interior because they didn't want to make rebellions easier. In Britain, they had walled towns.
Why would that make rebellions easier?
Because it's really hard to defend a city with 1,000 men against 10,000 men if it doesn't have walls. But if it has walls, you only have to defend against a certain amount of men at once. If you got 1,000 men defending an unwalled city, you've got to defend against all the enemy at once. If you've got a walled city, then you only have to defend against however many men they can get up on the walls at once.
So that would make me believe. Oh, so essentially,
so the rebels could capture a town and hold it, more effectively with walls.
So my thought was the initial capture would be, well, it would be easier.
It's not the initial capture by the rebels, it's the recapture.
Got it.
So, but in Britain, they didn't do that because they had such a hard time controlling the countryside because it was so far from Rome that they had to build walled cities. And the result was when the Romans left, the Celts went back to using their native language and worshiping their native gods. And it took another 100, 200 years before Christianity and Latin could reestablish themselves on the Isle of Britain.
It just surprises me that this is still on point, but it's not like any question you could particularly answer. But it just surprises me when leaders such as Caesar or others throughout history overextend their hand in terms of conquering for no real beneficial reason. Like there was no benefit to going
Iraq.
They had WMDs, man.
It's funny you say that as we're currently overextending our military in 120 countries worldwide.
Yeah, you just
inflating our currency.
Let's not look at, what is it, the M1?
Yeah, let's not look at the M1 money supply. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Let's not. But there was no reason to go to Britain for Julius Caesar. There was no benefit to that.
There was a reason to go to Britain for Julius Caesar, and that reason was no one else had.
Naturally.
For Caesar, and again, we're getting way off track here, but for Caesar, his conquest of Gaul was entirely about securing his position in the nobility. Caesar inhabited a destitute noble family and had to basically rebuild it from the ground up. He started as just a soldier.
Okay.
And he distinguished himself, and he worked his way up through the ranks, and eventually, by becoming political allies with Pompey and Crassus, he was able to... Crassus was the wealthiest man in Rome, and Pompey was one of the most esteemed generals in Rome. So Caesar was able to kind of insert himself as the populist leader, and as dictator, as consul, he was able to push through Pompey and Crassus' policies without them having to kind of stick their own neck out for it. So he would be the man who would pitch it, and he would have the people in the army behind him, and then Pompey and Crassus would kind of feed him ideas, and this was how Caesar came to power. But eventually Caesar became more powerful than Pompey and Crassus, and we know how that went.
Well, but it explains, because I didn't know Caesar's origins, but that explains essentially all the memes I've seen, where it's like, you have one leader talking to their military and they're like, screw you, whereas it's like Caesar is essentially like, I need you to do this, that, and whatever, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like
they were just more loyal to Caesar than anyone else.
Yeah. Well, when your leader, at least from a military standpoint, when your leader is essentially somebody who was in your position before, rose to that, earned their way up there, you have to respect them.
Oh, he was also known as a general, and not necessarily as a general, but as an officer. He was known to lead from the front. And this was part of what made Roman officers such powerful figures, despite their often harsh treatment of the soldiers under their command, was centurions would fight in line with their soldiers, like in the front rank. So Roman officers died at a much higher rate.
Yeah, well, understandably so.
Most other organized armies throughout time, but their soldiers also respected them a lot more. So they were able to be more disciplinarian. That's why they were able to pull off things like decimations, where you would have men group into tens, and then they would draw lots, and whoever draw the short stick was just killed. And this was a way to instill morale.
Interesting. Wait.
It worked.
That was among the soldiers.
Yeah.
So whoever drew the short straw just got
whacked.
Just for the sake
of morale.
How would that help morale?
I don't really know what the psychology was, but apparently it worked quite well.
So I've studied psychology. For anybody who has any inclination on deeper psychology, explain why that worked, because we know historically it existed.
And it worked. It worked pretty damn well.
Fair enough. Well, wait, who did the killing?
The officers, the centurions.
Okay. Maybe it was just a matter of order. Just basically, in the sense of, like, this just is how it. I can't imagine
banding together through survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's why Caesar went to Britain. That is the reason Caesar went to Britain. And then later on, they were like, "Ooh, Britain's got some cool resources. We should stay here."
And we think, I'm still on that last thing,
Sure.
and we think soldiers today have PTSD. Holy God.
Oh yeah, Roman soldiers were probably a mess.
Well, and Spartan soldiers were probably just
Spartan soldiers and
sociopaths.
Marines had a lot in common.
And what?
Marines.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, that's why they share a lot of the same stuff. But, like, to be fair, I feel like Spartans, given the way they were raised and things like that, Marines are sick. Love the Marines. I know a few. Very good friends with a couple.
Send your Marines some crayons. They need a treat.
They do. Send them some snacks and stuff. It'll be great. But
I just said send them some crayons.
yes, I know. I mean, okay, you can do crayons, you can do chalk. Like, there's a wide array of
A
options.
wide array of options for Marine snacks.
But
Please don't send your Marines any
yeah,
crayons.
please do not.
Maybe some tasty cakes.
Yeah,
They probably don't know what tasty cakes are.
just anything other than an MRE, for God's sake.
Dude, MREs are not that bad.
Depends on the type.
Depends on the type of MRE. I had some bad ones, but I also had some that were actually very good.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't tried. Oh no, I've had.
Dude, it was like trading cards. You'd be like, I got a cosmic brownie.
Yeah,
Like, what are you gonna give me for it?
Dude, I have passed cosmic brownies like the past 3 times I've been in an Acme, and it's taken a lot of self-restraint to not pick up a box.
Adulthood is being able to eat an entire box of Oreos and have nobody stop you, and adulthood is also understanding why that's a bad idea only after doing it 6 times.
Yeah.
Because the first 5 times you're like, oh, that was a coincidence. And then the 6th time you're like, you know what? I don't think that was a coincidence. Also, something I forgot to mention when you asked me about my favorite word. It's not a word, but it's a concept. The Yule Lads.
Oh, I need to know what this is.
It is an Icelandic tradition regarding a series of little elvish creatures who come at Yule, and they have specific names like I think one of them's like Spoon Stealer. They're just
Spoon Stealer.
they've got these just like bowl liquor, like they've got these weird attributes. My ex-girlfriend and I used to make jokes about it all the time.
Spoon Stealer. I'm gonna change my name in the Discord.
Look up when you get a free moment. Look up Yule Lads. Maybe I'll do a lore video on that.
I think
we should save it for Christmas. The Yule Lads.
The Yule Lads.
I want to do a group Christmas costume where we all are Yule Lads.
Oh, I'm in. I was just gonna say we need to change one of our group chats to the Yule Lads, or at least once it hits December, we'll do that.
All right. Jeez. Okay. We're simply not gonna hit these other concepts, so we will save those for next week because they're actually much more related than the 2 I have here. We didn't talk about personal paranormal experiences either.
We're only an hour in.
I know, but don't we want to take the last half hour and do questions?
Well, I've only got one story that's vaguely paranormal. I don't know how. It's quick. I don't know how long yours is. All right, so my personal paranormal story is, it's not necessarily paranormal. It's more religious, spiritual, whatever. I went through a period in like middle school and high school where I was just kind of like full on atheist for a while.
Reddit, neckbeard, My Little Pony atheist.
Correct. Didn't dive into My Little Pony.
I couldn't say, did you just admit to liking My Little Pony on air?
Never done that.
It's going in the guy.
I was a
going in the
Webkinz
best
guy.
man speech, whether I'm best man or not.
I also still can't grow facial hair, so I was not a neckbeard.
Both.
Yay!
Somebody commented on one of my videos asking why I had neck hair and no facial hair, and I was like, that is rude, sir. I just forgot to trim this morning. Like, come on. God. All right,
Give us a break. We're still in our early 20s. We're getting there.
Your paranormal My Little Pony story.
Yes. So, a Fuzzy Wuzzy came up to me in my sleep. No, I'm kidding. You set it up. I had to pay it off. You really...
Discord, I'm howling at the moon.
Anyway, so my story is essentially, it's not one that I particularly remember. It's one that I was told by those who witnessed it because I was young. It wasn't like I got possessed. Well, no.
This is like you telling me what happened last weekend.
Yeah, well.
You got possessed.
No, I said it's not like I got
okay.
possessed.
Right.
No. I was just too young to remember it. Stop it. Anyway, so essentially what happened is that my mother was in a room of our house one early morning, and let me preface this, is that this is the reason why I remembered this story, and this is the reason why I could never fully be an atheist. Even though, at times my brain was like, it doesn't make sense, it's illogical, I just couldn't get past this story because there was just no other explanation. Anyway, so my mom's sitting in the room of one of the rooms of our house, and she's on the phone with her mom, and they talk all the time on the phone and whatnot. And
As moms do.
As they do. Anyway, so what they were discussing on the phone prior to was the previous night, my mother's grandfather and her mother's father had passed away. And he was I think he was in his 80s or something. He lived a good life. But they were talking about that, and then so they had been talking for quite a while. And then I came into the room. And my bedroom is nowhere near this area of the house, and all I just normally would come right down to my mom in the mornings, things like that. So they're long past that point in the conversation, and my mother looks over to me as I enter the room and says, "Oh, good morning, sweetie. How are you?" And I just look at her dead in the eye with a smile on my face. I say, "Pop Jim died last night, didn't he?" And
I think you've told me this story.
I might have, yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and my mom just didn't know what to do, and because she was still on the phone with her mom, she was like, "Did you hear that?" And her mom was like, "Uh-huh." And my mom was like, "What? Why do you say?" I can't remember the exact words. She was like, "Why do you say that? What made you say that?" And I responded with, "'Cause God told me in my sleep last night. He said he's all happy and everything's good." And along those lines, I'm paraphrasing. She remembers exactly what I said. And then apparently I just ran off, and my mom and her mother just kind of sat there for a couple minutes what just happened? So I have no explanation of that, because I have interrogated both of them about it and broken that situation down, and there's no way I would have heard them talking about it. And I don't have an explanation beyond the spiritual on that one. So
that counts. That certainly counts. Glad Grandpa Jim's chilling.
Yeah, he's
vibing up in heaven.
Yeah, he's vibing. It's fine. Anyway, so yeah, what was your paranormal story?
All right, well, I've got 3 that come to mind.
Oh, okay.
The first one, the most vague one, is with shadow people, which I actually had somebody message me today who asked me about that. Messaged me on TikTok, one of my mutuals on there. Asked me, it told me that their friend died recently, and right before their friend died, she saw a shadowy figure wearing a hat and a trench coat. I don't know why everybody's shadow person is wearing a hat and a trench coat, but it seems to be that everyone's shadow person wears some sort of hat and a trench coat.
Apparently those neighborhood watch signs were pretty accurate.
But I made a TikTok where I asked people about that. I was like, in my shadow person video, I asked, I said that my shadow person had a hat. And I said, what about all of yours? And almost every single person was like, yeah, all the shadow people I've seen had hats.
What kind of hat?
It varied. It could be a cowboy hat, a fedora, a sombrero. It didn't matter, but they were all wearing hats. Almost all of them.
So when you say shadow people, what exactly did it look like?
Yeah, so basically shadow people are just people will report humanoid figures that are pure black, but they appear to be wearing clothing, but they just appear as dark, shadowy, as if you had a black fog.
Interesting.
But they will take on the shape of a person. And it'll be anything from a fog to more of a solid figure, but kind of the running similarities are that they are dark, they generally have red eyes, they seem to be wearing a hat and a trench coat, and they will appear before times of discomfort or tragedy.
Or is it
often to children?
They
won't hurt you.
No.
They'll just kind of look at you.
Is it when you compare a human to a shadow figure? Does the shadow figure have definitive 3-dimensional texture?
Yes.
Are there colors beyond the darkness?
No, just black.
It's just black.
Just black.
Even the face, except for the red
Except for
eyes.
the eyes.
Is there, is it like a Vanta black where it's hard to see the details, or okay?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of
It's like a black fog or mist or smoke.
got it. But you can still tell that it is three-dimensional.
Yeah, you can tell it's three-dimensional and that it has features like clothing.
Okay.
And for me personally, I started seeing one when I was about 7.
Okay.
Always about as far off as I could see. And it did get a little bit closer over time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have one very vivid memory of it, and it went away around 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I had one very vivid memory, and I don't know, because I wasn't experiencing anything tragic at the time.
Yeah.
It was just there, watching. Just not comfortable.
Well, I don't think anybody
some man
enjoys
in a
that.
hat and a trench coat watching you from afar is not something you want.
Even if it's not a
Even if it's not a shadow.
figure.
In fact, it's probably worse if it's not a shadow person.
Yeah, I would agree.
But
I'd rather be haunted than hunted.
yeah, so I just have one very vivid memory when I was homeschooled in 3rd grade. That's a thing that happened.
Yeah, I always forget that was the thing.
Yeah, when I was homeschooled in 3rd grade, I was at this place that us homeschool kids would go to get some social interaction called Open Connections, and it was in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania. And
Is that a plug?
no, I just want everybody to understand this is a very real, vivid memory.
Yeah, I got you.
And it was like an old farmhouse that we would all chill in, and I was in the farm kinesthetics and math program, which is not 3 things that go together. And basically what we would do is occasionally multiplication, farm for potatoes, and then spend most of our time running around the woods.
Did you at least get to eat the potatoes?
Yes, we
Were
did
they
cook
good?
the potatoes.
Were they good?
They were decent for a bunch of 3rd graders cooking them.
Fair enough.
But most of our time was spent running around the woods.
Naturally.
And a bunch of 8-year-olds running around the woods. And there was a weird little kind of platform with tiki torches. I don't really remember why that was there. I just remember that it was there.
Sounds vaguely cultish.
A little bit. But there was a very tall, probably 100 feet at least, hill with a pretty steep slope that we would sled on in the winter. But you could see it from the main farmhouse. It was probably about 3/4 of a mile away.
Okay.
And I just remember vividly looking out the window one day and just seeing a shadow person just standing on the hill, just looking right at me. And it, again, 3/4 of a mile away. But I could tell it was looking at me.
Yeah.
And that was unsettling. And then I saw it a few more times until I was about 11 years old. Never saw it again. Haven't seen it since. Another really quick one, when I was staying at my Aunt Cindy's summer after junior year of college, when I just got an Archie. I don't know if you remember this, he would just bark at empty doorways in that house. Which my cousins insist is haunted, and I agree.
Yep, I do.
It's like a really old farmhouse, and he would just suddenly get up at around 11 p.m. every night and bark at this empty doorway. Deeply unsettling.
Having spent a couple nights there, even with you in the house, definitely weird vibes.
Yeah, it had some weird vibes. But yeah, so there's that. There's this one time that I was in 4th grade hanging out with some of my friends from Open Connections. Kid Zach. Didn't see him from 4th grade until 10th grade, and by that time, he had been homeschooled a lot longer than me. He went through 8th grade and then went to public school. By that time, he had blue hair, and his nickname was Dragon. So, shout out, Zach. Hope you're doing good.
Or Dragon.
Or Dragon, if you're still going by Dragon. Hope you're having a good time. But yeah, so we were in his basement, and we were monster hunting, as 9-year-olds do.
As one does, yes.
And we were all really into
9-year-olds?
We were 9 at the time. 4th grade.
You say that like we still don't do that.
No, that's fair. So we're in the basement monster hunting, and we go downstairs, and as very seasoned monster hunters, we turn on all the lights. Convinced ourselves we saw something in the shadows. I go back into the way his basement works was basically that there was one room that went all the way back, and then a U-turn, and another room that came all the way back, but didn't access the stairs. So just a big horseshoe. I went into the horseshoe room. I was scared, so I grabbed a knife off the workbench that was right next to me. I don't know what I was going to do with the rusty knife on the workbench next to me, but I was 9.
Hey, something's better than nothing.
Exactly. Walked to the back of the room. There was a light with a pull string. Pulled it down. Turned the light on. Sketched myself out. Ran away. We ran up the stairs. We were all freaked out. Zach's mom is like, hey, you need to go turn the lights off before you finish up with monster hunting. We go back downstairs.
That sounds like the opening scene to a horror film.
We go back downstairs. I go down. I grab the knife again. I turn off the light. run back in the dark, put the knife down on the workbench, run back up the stairs, all the lights are off. His mom's like, that didn't take you long enough. You definitely didn't turn off all the lights. Go back down and turn them all off. We were only down there for like 7 seconds, to be fair.
Yeah, but like...
But yeah, she didn't believe us, so we go back down, and the first thing I see is there's light coming from the room I just left. And I walk back, and I turn the corner, lights on, tied to the drawstring is the knife. We were upstairs maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And all three of us went up. There was nobody down there with us.
Yeah.
And I remember that vividly, just being like, So I don't know, if this ever gets back to Zach, please, if this did not happen, if I made this up, fact check me on it, but I vividly remember it.
That's a no,
that was a big nope.
I'd have been like, if I walked in on that, it literally would have verbally said nope.
Yep.
Went upstairs and to mom, I would have been like, hey, no, like, can you do that, please?
Yeah. And then the final one is me and the neighborhood friends were playing Infection, which for those of you who didn't do this growing up, if you ever played the Halo or Call of Duty mode Infection, one person would start out as it, and then they had to tag people. Last person to not be it would win. This was often either my friend Tommy, who inexplicably could blend into any shadows despite being pale and Irish,
Tommy was
or one of the girls who just had the capacity to sit and be quiet for extended periods of time. It was never me. I never won. It was always really close, but I never quite won. And our friend Zoe would just, you ever see It Follows? It's the movie about the STD ghost.
I've not.
It's a sexually transmitted ghost.
Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious.
Can we watch it?
Yes, we can watch it.
The Discord will watch that together at some point. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Yeah, but our friend Zoe was kind of like the It Follows demon. She would never catch you because she was just not fast enough. But she would not stop. You would be just like, at a certain point where you're like, all right, I'm sick. There's Zoe slowly plodding along towards you. Sorry, Zoe. Also, you were supposed to bring us to your beach house like 4 years ago, and you never did. So, I'm telling this story as revenge.
Take that, Zoe.
Ha! Yeah, she's never going to watch this.
No, not a chance.
No chance. I don't think even our other close friends watch this show.
I don't think they're aware of when we do it or whatever.
No.
I mean, it's not like we
They know the show exists.
It's not like we've told them. We haven't asked them to watch.
You think I haven't shoved it in all of their faces that I have a podcast that people actually watch?
Fair enough.
This is like the one thing I have, man.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
This is all I have.
We're surviving.
It's my fucking life. But yeah, so the final time we were playing Infection, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go hide in the house next to the Brennan's house yard. This house at the time was abandoned. It had been abandoned since we had moved into the neighborhood a decade earlier. And there had been some weird goings on in that house, like the basement lights came on once. Mm-hmm. It wasn't connected to the power grid.
Oh.
Because it had been abandoned for 10 years. So, yeah, like one time we were all getting ready we had a camp out each year, and we were all getting ready to launch our attack plan on the girls' tent, because it was just an all-night prank war. That was what we did.
As you do.
Yeah, we were like 15, 16.
Yep.
And we were standing in the Brennan's driveway, and it suddenly dropped 10 degrees. Yeah. And, but this one particular time we're playing Infection, and I go to hide in that house's yard, because I'm like, nobody's going to look for me here. Go into the yard, go down the driveway. It's pretty shallow property. And there's a plastic lawn chair in the driveway for some reason. I go and I sit by the hedges, and I see Tommy run past me in his yard, and I'm like, okay, he has no suspicion I'm here. He was it. He was the zombie. Mm-hmm. So he runs past me, and I'm like, all right, cool. And then a couple minutes later, I hear something skitter across asphalt, and I'm like, I look behind me. The chair is now 10 feet from where the chair was, upside down. And at that moment, I'm like, all right, I got two options. I let this ghost make me its bitch, or I stand up to the ghost. Mm. So I look at the house, and I'm like, hey, fuck off. Every door in the house slammed
No way.
Yes. I heard just a collective,
Just like, oh.
yeah, and I was like, ooh, no. And I bolted out of the yard. And I did not go back in that yard since. It has been probably about 5 years since then at this point. This was summer, this was summer of 2015. So 6 years. 3 families have lived in that house since we went to college in 2017. 2 of them have moved out within a year.
Is there one in there now?
There's one in there now. 2 of those families moved out within a year of moving in.
We should
Tell me I'm wrong.
we should ask to just pop by.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they might not still be there. I'll drive by sometime.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are my personal stories.
Those are some pretty.
I remember all of these vividly. I wouldn't make these things up.
No.
Yeah, and I was not a person who was afraid of the dark at all. We would play Manhunt, Infection, Capture the Flag in the pitch dark, 10, 11 p.m. after watching Supernatural, back when it was still scary. Like
Pre-season 5.
yeah, exactly. Like
season.
season 1 and 2 of Supernatural, we'd watch like Family Remains, the episode with the kids in the walls.
Oh yeah.
We'd watch that and then go play out in the dark. Like we were psychopaths, dude.
That is so funny because I'm
nuts.
still scared of the dark, man.
Yeah, no, we were insane. But yeah, so it wasn't like I was afraid of the dark, but there was some funky stuff going on in that house.
Oh well, clearly, yeah.
Yeah. I was not a fan. All right, do we have questions in the chat?
We do.
We got to configure super chats for next week because
Yeah, we do. We got to figure out how to do that. So
desperately poor.
Desperately poor. By the
Destitute.
way, for those of you who were asking why things are blurry, it's because we are in fact filming this on an iPhone.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a camcorder because we can't afford it.
Well, we do have that new stuff from Padcaster.
Right, it is on the way.
It's it is. I just have to go pick it up. We had a generous donation of a Padcaster Verse, which is a tripod, as well as there's an app and some software and some microphones and stuff. So we're gonna be picking that up. Gonna be using that for some of our future stuff. So we might start plugging Padcaster a bit. Please don't hate us for that. But they are.
We got to do something.
They're being very helpful. So we would love love for you guys to give us some support there. But yeah. So do we have questions?
We do. So the first one that I'm seeing is from Brendan, and it says, "What do you think is?" Sorry, kind of died.
It's okay.
What do you think is the scariest aspect of the Wendigo? Sorry, or any of its variations? I think it's the voice mimicking.
I think that's got to be up there.
Yep.
Just from a psychological aspect, because I think I've said this at some point before, but if you hear your sister calling for help in the woods, and you're like, that seems fake, and it's not.
Yeah.
That's going to screw with you. So the urge to go out and help is going to be very strong. I would say it's either that or the dead silence with which it moves. Because in all of these cases where people disappear that I think are related to this, it moves in complete silence.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. And the people who go missing never scream. They just disappear. So
interesting.
I don't know what is going on with that, but I think that would it's got to be either the voice mimicry or the having dead silence pro.
Yeah, the silence is definitely freaky.
Yeah.
Okay, so a question for the brown-haired Aidan. What influences while as a kid did you have with Christianity? This could explain why you could say, or that could explain why you would say, God told me this. Oh, I think
that's
for
you.
me.
You're blonde. He's blonde. I'm brown hair. What?
I'm honored that you considered this brown. To be honest with you, I'm hoping to get
You know
more
what? If people, just quick aside, if people do want to donate to our endeavors, I have PayPal.
Mm.
So if you want to put that, it's just my email, aidan.matt@gmail.com.
Okay.
If you want to put that in the chat.
Sure.
Obviously, no pressure, but we are trying to make better content. So if you do feel generous, that is my PayPal, and obviously he will get paid out.
Yes. Thank you. There's also the Patreon. So
Patreon, if you want to subscribe monthly.
We're going to restructure that a little bit. More to come on that. Some more information and news to come.
But there is a $1 tier.
Yes,
that
and
we
that would be
would
awesome.
greatly appreciate, because if for example, if everyone in our Discord joined the $1 tier, that would be about $400 a month for us to really make this show make this show work.
Yeah, that would be enough. That would be huge, because we'd essentially use it all initially to just get better equipment, so that way this looks good. I can have a mixer, so I can actually properly hear things, work with things, and everything like that. And then beyond that, it would just allow us to be able to do this and dedicate the time to this beyond the other things in which we're pursuing, allowing us to actually focus on this as much as we want to, as much as we kind of have been. But moving forward, it's going to be difficult if we can't sustain ourselves.
Getting a little tight.
So
for sure. So those are, if you want to support us and contribute, those are, to any ability that you have or are willing to do, we would greatly appreciate that, of course. But yeah, it's I think that question was for you.
Yeah, I'm going to assume it was for me. Thank you. But so influences while I was a kid with Christianity. So the funny thing is I don't remember a lot of my childhood in that sense. I have a couple memories here and there, but most of my childhood's just not kind of there. But from what I understand and what I was told, I prayed every night. I wasn't in a family that went to church every Sunday. It was more kind of an individual relationship with God in that sense. So it was just, prayer every night, just kind of keeping Him with you at all times and things like that. Nothing jammed down your throaty kind of stuff, but just, keeping it present, keeping it in mind.
Catholic, right?
Yeah, Catholic. Catholic, yeah. I went to Episcopal, but Episcopal was kind of one of those deals where it was like, we don't care what you are, you're welcome. They just wanted you to be spiritually active. It didn't really...
I was baptized Episcopalian.
Were you really?
Yeah.
What do you consider yourself now?
Methodist.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did that shift happen?
College.
Gotcha.
When I was getting my religious studies minor. Just doing a lot of reading.
What motivated the switch?
Well, I was raised non-denominational. So it was more it wasn't necessarily that like there was a huge motivator. It was just like, as I was reading up on stuff and studying, I found that the church I liked most was Methodism.
And why is that?
It's very scripture based. It avoids the dogma, and the the Catholic Church has a lot of stuff that's based in tradition rather than scripture, and a lot of that stems from the period directly after the fall of the Roman Empire, when the Catholic Church was really the only power structure left in Europe that spanned the entire continent, and they became more of a government entity than a religious one. So a lot of, John Wesley's, method, which is where Methodism comes from, basically took all that and pushed it aside and went, all right, what's the book say? Default to the book. When you have a question of faith, what does the scripture say? If the scripture contradicts the church is wrong.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so that's where I netted out. But
fair. Okay, in terms of other questions, what do you think flesh pedestrians evolved of? This is kind of stemming back to one of the Friday episodes in
the Nephilim one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my theory on the flesh pedestrians is that they come from the kind of this collective human idea of not necessarily a precursor race, in some cases a precursor race, but a version of humanity or a similar to humanity that existed alongside humans at one point, that came in some function from a divine source. So in my religion, that would be Nephilim. That would be the children of angels and human beings. angelic men and human women. Because as far as I know, there aren't female angels. I think they are all male in gender.
Interesting. Does the scripture say that anywhere?
It implies it.
Okay.
You never hear about female angels from what I remember.
Okay.
But in this case, at least, if there are both male and female angels, it was only male angels.
Gotcha. Just as a quick aside, I would love to do either a Friday episode or a topic on here about the story of Lucifer. I feel like
for sure that would be that's one we can definitely dive into. But there's a lot in that separating myth from actual scripture.
Yeah, because that's my thought. Is because I feel like there's a lot of mischaracterization and also misunderstanding between the myth and the scripture, and there's not really. I feel like there's not a lot of clear, accessible information to know what is actually part of the scripture.
A lot of what people think about the fall of Lucifer and all of that comes, rather than coming from Revelation, it comes from Paradise Lost, which is based off of the Bible, but it's not the Bible.
Yeah.
So just to get back to the question, as you can tell, I am so good at staying on topic.
To be fair, it's mostly my fault.
Yeah. I think that they are in some way related to the antediluvian Nephilim, and that similar to the way that in Norse mythology, Loki has all of these children who are utter monstrosities. At some point, these, Nephilim, or maybe their children, probably created some pretty monstrous things. When you consider Lucifer's behavior in the Bible, you get some interesting possibilities about what Lucifer's children would have been like, should he have had them. Just stuff like that. So I think my belief is that the reason that we have such similarity across religions in this belief that there was another race similar to humans, but with some key differences, that were stronger, that were faster, not necessarily more intelligent, but slightly physically enhanced. I think that's pretty key.
You have to wonder why they were not the ones to...
I think there were less of them.
That makes sense.
I really think that the reason that... And it's the same thing I said about why they only hunt in secluded areas and prey on hikers and campers. One human, chump change. Easy prey. 25 humans.
And then 25 humans with weapons.
Yeah, 25 humans with spears and 25 humans with bows and then 25 humans with guns. Over time, humans have just gotten more and more deadly.
Yep.
So I think the reason... I think it must have been that there were simply 100 times as many of us than there were then.
Yeah, it makes sense. So next question is, so that last one was from Corrupt Salcrow, or Slackrow, just to make sure I'm giving the shout-outs where necessary. Crovian Class asks, my final two questions. 1, how would a fleshy boy react to getting charged? And 2...
Like with a DUI?
Potentially, yes. Or number 2, would tannerite and or napalm ?
So we don't have any documentation of what happens when you charge a fleshy boy, which I think answers all those questions. Nobody has lived to tell the tale, so probably doesn't go well. I think they would probably just kill you because, again, super fast, super strong, move silently. You're out of your depth.
Yep.
As far as tannerite and napalm, if you were able to pin down its location, yeah, that would work. Napalm probably better than tannerite.
But look, just as a caveat, please don't go spraying napalm and or spraying tannerite into random forests because you think there might be a fleshy boy there.
It's...
Because that's how forest fires start, and there's too many of them already.
Yeah. California has enough problems.
Yeah.
We don't need to give them more. But yeah, tannerite, probably not as easy as using like gasoline or napalm. Mm-hmm. But kind of the way you would want to go with it is if you think that you've found a fleshy boy, you would want to figure out where it lives and set up a trap so you could, set it on fire in its own home when it's not expecting it. That would be the best way to kill one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also avoid forest fires.
Yes.
Only you. Anyway, next question is from Cooper. It says,
Thanks, Cooper.
what does it mean if I've been seeing shadows of things and people that aren't actually there, and it's not like shadow people you experience, it's just shadows with nothing to cast a shadow? So, literal shadows, but nothing's there.
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Decent.
He's been stumped.
Trying to think what would block light without being visible. Because it would need to be something that...
Or could the shadows itself be the entity?
That would have to be it. I mean, there's a lot of reports with spiritual apparitions which I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but there's a lot of reports of spiritual apparitions where they'll...
Hang on a second. I don't necessarily believe in ghosts. Has had minimum 2 encounters with ghosts.
Demons.
And
I think demons,
okay.
not ghosts.
So what's the difference between a demon and a ghost in your
A
opinion?
ghost is a human spirit that has gotten stuck between this life and the next life.
Yeah.
Demon is like an evil, twisted, demented, angelic presence that has, infested an area or an object.
Interesting. Fair enough. All right, continue.
Yeah.
So the entity of shadow.
Yeah. So if you're... A lot of spiritual apparitions, ghosts, manifest as shadows because it takes a lot of energy to manifest as an actual 3-dimensional being. So if you're seeing shadows, that would be my first guess. Would be you're seeing a ghost that is not yet powerful enough to manifest in full physical form. That's the same as if you see like ectoplasm dripping from a crack in a wall. You're seeing a ghost presence that is not strong enough to manifest itself.
Got it.
Ghosts and demons both are usually tied to objects, places, or people. So if you are seeing those and they're in a specific location, then it's probably infesting that location. If you're seeing them around, a teddy bear, and you move the teddy bear into another room and then the shadows appear around it, it's probably infesting the object. If you're seeing them everywhere, I have bad news. And if you're seeing them everywhere, go talk to a priest and tell them exactly tell them exactly what you're seeing. Because believe it or not, Catholic priests and Orthodox priests are in fact trained in exorcisms.
Might help.
That's a real thing. A lot of people think that's a joke. I'm serious. I am 100% serious.
Oh, we should see if we can get an exorcism on tape.
No. That would
Yeah.
be terrifying.
No, I'm down.
I would love to get a priest on the show to
We
talk
should-
about exorcisms.
we should definitely get a priest on the show.
It'd be great.
B, we gotta get a network going. Even if you don't want to go, I will go and film an exorcism for sure.
I know you would too.
Yeah, that sounds hilarious.
Do a 3 a.m. podcast where we use a Ouija board.
Ooh, we should.
No, we shouldn't. That's the other thing. Catholic priests are very serious about not using Ouija boards.
Fair.
That is something they take very seriously, and you know what? If they take it seriously, I'm taking it seriously too.
Fair enough. Okay. Question from Jivas, who is one of our Discord admin. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chivas.
You are God's gift to the Discord, along with Alex and Pep and all of the other wonderful admins and mods. Anyway, so is the P.O. box up and running yet?
No. Because we may be moving across an ocean.
At least one of us.
At least one of us is moving across an ocean.
Make this thing worth my while,
And
I
we'll
will
move across
too.
the ocean too for a year. And then we'll do the show live from haunted castles in Wales. Probably not, but we'll do a Facebook live from a haunted castle in Wales.
We'll figure it out.
How are we going to get internet in a haunted castle?
Hotspot.
All right, fair enough.
Anyway, so Be on the lookout for potential haunted Welsh castle podcast.
No, definitely going to be haunted Welsh castle content. It's just whether or not it's a podcast.
Fair.
Because I will be there.
Yeah. I know. Okay. Another question is... Dizzy Dragon just said, of course you guys are still on the iPhone. Okay.
What else were we going to use?
Yeah, we can't afford anything else. Okay, so what are some supernatural creatures... so this is from Quattro. What are some supernatural creatures... What are some supernatural creatures...
Señor.
De nada, señor. Let me read, señor. What are some supernatural creatures that live in and around the desert? Because if I jump my back fence, I can wander into the desert for miles. We don't suggest or advise
Please
that.
don't jump your back fence and wander in the desert for miles.
Just like even beyond like supernatural stuff.
Rule of thumb, just don't do that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, unless you're going to bring a guitar and a horse with no name, then it doesn't sound that very fun.
Desert-related... I mean, skinwalkers. If you're in the southwestern United States. I will have to actually look into that and get a more in-depth answer. The chupacabra, supposedly. In terms of things that aren't necessarily bad, but are questionable whether or not they exist. The jackalope. A lot of alien sightings happen in deserts for some reason. Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to look into that, and maybe we can do a lore episode on desert.
I think we should.
Desert entities. I'll write that down.
There we go. Thank you guys for the ideas. There was another one. Here we go. Question from Brendan. How many humans would it take to take on a fleshy guy? You can make up you can make up what you think would be a fair amount for them to have.
I'll say this: you don't usually hear stories about them taking on groups of more than a dozen. Like
So-
if you're in a group of 12 to 15 people, they don't seem to involve themselves. Most of the stories you hear about groups smaller than 10. So I would say if you genuinely believed that your small town was being terrorized by a fleshy boy, 25 people would probably be a safe bet.
Yep.
Because then you could split up into teams of 5.
That's not...
It's not more than 12, but it's... 24 people, 2 teams of a dozen would probably be...
There you go.
Probably your best way to go.
There you go. Any fleshy boy legends on sea islands from Parker?
Sea islands?
Yes.
I don't hear a lot about them, but there is a national park in Guam.
Is your mentality at this point just any...
It's possible that any and all national parks are involved in this. But also,
Naturally.
I've never heard of somebody going missing in Valley Forge. So it can't be all national parks.
Yeah, I don't think it's... Not all national parks, guys.
Yeah, not all of them. But no. So, I mean, the thing is, if you think about when we seem to believe that these creatures originated, in my opinion, with the Great Flood, it would make sense that they wouldn't be on islands.
Yep.
Water levels were rising.
Yeah, depends on how big the island.
I just think they would go for larger land masses.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Some might have not getting lucky though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hear a ton of stories about it, but there's also another facet of that in that when you do have cultures or tribes that practice cannibalism, those tend to be found on islands more often than mainland continents. And considering that one of the general traits here is that these creatures tend to exist in cultures where cannibalism is taboo, it would make more sense that you would see them in places where cannibalism isn't common. Cannibalism is definitely more common in island cultures.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair. Okay, Talia, I'm assuming it's Talia, asks, asks, if you hear a fleshy boy, is it safe to go outside later? I feel like
probably not. No.
I feel like a qualifier would be how much later.
How much later are we talking? Are we talking 30 minutes? Because it's not like eating and then going swimming. But yeah, I would say if you're up in a cabin, in the Adirondacks, and you think you hear somebody screaming for help in the woods, it's probably best to give it a few days before you go out past your property line.
Or go out.
Yeah, there was
night.
One thing that somebody suggested on one of my TikToks where they said, or somebody tagged me in another guy's TikTok, that's what it was, where he said that given the lack of people going out for the past year, it would be possible that lack of prey and desperation would drive the fleshy boys into more populated areas out of desperation. Which could explain why so many people are reporting seeing and hearing them closer to populated areas recently. But yeah, here's the thing. If you hear a fleshy boy, even if it's not one, the circumstances probably aren't great. But yeah, I would just say, practice caution. If you've absolutely got to go out, make sure that you have a buddy. Keep an eye on each other. We are fueling the flames here.
We really are. I saw the opportunity. It had to be done.
I know. But yeah.
Alex, you know what to do.
I would say wait. If you hear one, give it a few days.
So I have a question, and then I'm going to do one more question before we hop off, because we are now at an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, dear Lord.
But so when it comes to being in the wilderness and you hear somebody crying for help and things like that, and the potential that it could be a fleshy boy, or the potential that it could just be a person actually needs help, what do you do?
Stick to your trail. Mark your coordinates. Mark the direction you heard the screams coming from. And go find the nearest ranger station or police office.
See, ladies and gentlemen, there are ways to be smart and helpful without putting yourself in danger. Well done.
Yep.
All right, and the last question that we will take tonight is...
If you have questions that we don't answer, feel free to send us an email and we will try to get to them.
Yes, we will. Lucky Dog Lures asks, what are your thoughts on the hide behind?
This is what I keep hearing about, that I haven't done a ton of research into, but what I have heard about it, I'm going to shout out, I think it's True Legends of Monsters is the channel, the page on TikTok. I think his name is Aaron Tomlinson. He did a quick video on it that I thought was really good, so that would be something to check out for sure. Go take a look at that, toss him a like and a view. He's doing some great content, very similar to what we do. But the idea behind it is that it exists, but nobody has been able to describe it, from what I understand. I was actually going to do a video on that tomorrow, after I have some time to look into it. But I don't necessarily know that I would classify it within the fleshy boys. Maybe. I like I said, I have to look more into it. But the idea behind it, I definitely don't love. That it calls to you and you can't see it because it's hiding. That's one that I was planning on getting to tomorrow. So you beat me to the punch there, but I will definitely look into it. I just recently heard about that one. We can do one more since I didn't really have a good answer to that.
Okay.
I feel bad.
Let's see. Friendly Cult Leader asks, why do some of the fleshy boys and Bigfoot behaviors overlap?
I'm wondering exactly which behaviors you mean. Also, there, for example, the Cherokee Devil is described as being much more similar to a Bigfoot than a Windy Bagel. So I think what I'm catching on with the native lore is that there are Bigfoot Bigfoot-like creatures that are evil, and there are Bigfoot-like creatures that are good. Sasquatch being one of the good ones. The Cherokee Devil being one of the bad ones. And I had one of our followers told me about one of his experiences with the Cherokee Devil, where they were out, I think he said dirt biking or ATVing, and they just got the sense they were being watched, and there was, they were very uncomfortable, and apparently the Cherokee Devil only targets Cherokee people. So you and I are safe.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Feel bad for any Cherokees, but...
Yeah. I wonder if it would target people in a Grand Cherokee.
I think you'd have to think twice.
Yeah, we probably need to do some thinking.
Yep.
Hopefully that would give you time to get away. But yeah, so I think that there's probably there's some Bigfoot lore that kind of fits with the Wendigo and all of that. And one possibility would be that you're looking at different tribes and peoples interpreting the same being in different ways. Fireworks. And then the other possibility is that there is overlap, and these are two different creatures who both happen to hunt humans and make calls in the woods. But Bigfoots generally are... They won't mimic human voices. So that's one of the core differences, is they do call to each other, it seems like, but it's more of their own language.
Mm.
Whereas with the fleshy boys, they'll call to you in a human voice or a mimicked human voice.
Mm. Okay, so I do have one more.
Oh boy.
Because I just couldn't let this one slide.
What is it?
So Jacko asks, wait, if you eat a skinwalker, will you become a Wendigo? I think it's a valid question.
To take your question very literally, if you eat a skinwalker, would you become a Wendigo?
Yes.
Yes.
Woo!
Because skinwalkers are humans. Now, if you eat a Wendigo, would you become a Wendigo? That would be a interesting question. They are technically still human. Because even if it's the version where the Wendigo is a spirit that possesses a person, then you're still eating a person. So yeah, in either case, I would say you would run the risk. I don't know that it would necessarily be certain, but you would be consuming human flesh out of malice or desperation, which would possibly turn you into a Wendigo. It's actually the plot of We Went Camping.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
I should put that up on Patreon for our patrons to read.
Yeah.
The original short story.
Yeah.
Novella, I guess, technically. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to make that available to all $1 patrons and up.
There you go.
So if you want to read an original short story that I wrote, it's about 45 pages long. And it's called We Went Camping, and it's about Wendigos. It takes place in northeastern Pennsylvania. So, yeah, if you're interested in that, I'll upload that tomorrow.
Cool.
And that's something that I'll make available to all $1 and up patrons. But yeah, if you ate a Wendigo, you would theoretically also become a Wendigo. It's kind of a vicious cycle, I guess.
A little bit. What if a Wendigo eats a Wendigo?
I think that would just double the Wendigo, like double his power.
Ooh. So it's just
you would
like
just have an alpha Wendigo,
yeah.
Which would be horrible.
It's just juicing for Wendigos.
Yeah, exactly.
Brutal. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it.
Yeah, hang on, let me.
That's all, folks.
All right. Yeah, thanks everybody for stopping by the Lore Lodge. Give it, even if you're, the best thing you can do for us, honestly, is sharing the show. Whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, anything, give us a like and a share, and that helps us grow. That helps us get money from YouTube. Watch us without ad block on.
Hang on. One more.
What?
One more
All
question.
Right, fine. Okay.
This is from Commander Canada 213.
What a name.
Is it legal to use a fleshy boy to commit war crimes in ex-Soviet countries?
I don't know that it's illegal. Like,
that was too good.
is it legal? I wouldn't necessarily say yet, but I don't think that there's a law on the books saying you can't unleash a Wendigo in Kazakhstan.
So we're gonna have to check in with like the Geneva Convention and like NATO and the UN, but I recommend sending questions like that.
Please do. I enjoy questions like that.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Also, thank you to everybody who's saying thanks in the comments. Very much appreciated. We thank you for being here and supporting us.
This is the most fun thing I've ever done for a job. So having all of you out there who listen and watch and enjoy this, it's really so much fun to get to interact with you guys and to tell these stories and have these conversations. You know, this is awesome for us. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next Sunday.
You got it. And are we gonna do Discord tonight or?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah,
we'll hop into the.
We'll be in general.
Yeah, we're gonna do voice chat in the general tonight, just so that we can kind of get everybody in there, and then we'll probably move that to the campfire for next week.
Yeah. So we'll do essentially just so everybody can kind of have a chance to understand what it is, and then eventually what we're going to be doing is Patreon exclusive people because. We need help. Yeah, we need help actually making this something worth watching and not having as many technical difficulties and, doing the best we can to create the best content for you that we can.
Yes.
So, we'll be in general tonight sometime between now and like 10:10. We'll be there till like 10:30, 10:45 at the latest. We're probably going to grab some food first, chill out.
Crack open a cold one with the boys.
We might have to.
Yeah.
Might have to. But anyway, thank you guys for stopping by, and we really appreciate it. We will do our best to not have so many technical difficulties next time. I told you to put it on half speed.
I forgot.
Oh, God. Oh, this is brutal. Anyway.
It's back.
It's back. Just like we are. Podcast number 3 starting right now. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week. Just like we are. Podcast number 3 starting right now. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The original short story.
Yeah.
Novella, I guess technically. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make that available to all $1 patrons and up.
There you go.
If you want to read an original short story that I wrote, it's about 45 pages long. And it's called We Went Camping, and it's about Wendigos. It takes place in northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't know that it's illegal.